This is The Express with Gary Allen, your 360-degree view of the world. Now, here's your host, Gary Allen.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Express. I hope you've all had a wonderful week since the last time we talked. Tonight, we have a very interesting show with one of my dearest friends in the whole world. But before we get to that, just a quick reminder for you. You can check me out on Facebook at Gary Allen, A-L-A-N, YouTube.com, which has all my past shows. This show will be up on there on Friday at 7 p.m. Oh, go to Gary Allen, The Express for that. Thursday night at 7 p.m. You can catch me on diversitybroadcastnetwork.com. The show will repeat itself. Also on progressivevoices.com. You can go there and check out any of my stuff on the demand channel. I do have some interesting news coming forth here very, very soon with a network out of Atlanta that I'll be connected with, and about my Monday night show here locally in the Cocoa Beach area. So before I go very far, I just wanted to say to everybody out there, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day. This is indeed Gary Allen. I just wanted to thank you for joining us. Randy Jones, I know you're out there listening. You do every week. Tonight, we are very honored. At least I am. I've known this gentleman for a little over 10 years, I think, at this particular point. He's been a dear friend of mine for a very long time. He is one of the funniest cats you're ever going to meet. He is a success, and I will tell you all about him right now. Matthew King is one of the few people in the world able to state he is an entrepreneur, game show expert, comedian, and someone who gets to play games for a living. As founder of Game Show America, Matthew has created and led the production of over 1,000 live events during the past 21 years. His productions have been staged in 44 of the 50 states, including Canada, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Ireland. Since launching GSA, Game Show America, in 1996, Matthew successfully built the company into a leading independent game show production company in the United States. Throughout his career, Matthew has worked with numerous game show celebrities, including Ross Schaefer, Bill Kirchenbauer, the late Alan Thicke, Bob Eubanks, John O'Herlihy, Wink Martindale, Chuck Woolery, Monty Durham, Chris Jacobs, and Jim Brewer. Some of his clients include the Walt Disney Company, Johnson & Johnson, Harrah's Entertainment, the Mets, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Texas Rangers, the New York Yankees, Verizon, San Diego Chargers, SunTrust Bank, DirecTV, Nordstrom's, Wells Fargo, Abbott Pharmaceuticals or Abbott Laboratories. You kind of get the idea. The guy just can't hold down a job. What can I tell you? At any particular rate, without further ado, my dear, dear, dear friend, and I can say that. And by the way, what also makes his company so successful, he surrounds himself with some of the finest people that I know on this planet as far as people who do the work for him. And that includes probably primarily the number one cat that I love a lot, and that's Mr. Scott Parr. But for right in all intents purposes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matthew King, welcome to The Express, and thank you for being with us tonight, sir.
Well, thanks so much for having me here, Gary. I really appreciate it, and let's have some fun over the next hour or so. It'll be good to catch up and find out what you're doing, and you can find out what I'm doing.
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's been one of those kind of crazy days. I was on the phone with two ex-Baltimore Colts, of all subjects to bring up while we're on the phone. Actually, one was an Indianapolis Colt. The other one was a Baltimore Colt that I've been booking for that'll be coming up because I wanted to find out what they thought about, how the Colts did in the draft, and they were both thumbs up, absolutely. There's a running gag for those of you that have no idea why I brought that up. There's always been a running gag since I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan, and since I'm a veteran and I served overseas in Vietnam. So there's always been a running gag between Matt and I, and I guess it kind of came to the greatest situation in the world a few years ago. I guess 3 years ago now, I was up with you and the gang. We were in Indianapolis doing the Big Ten championship game, and we had to wear these shirts. So Matt was going to work the next day what I was doing the first day, and so he needed to borrow my shirt. And I just happened to look to see where the shirt was made. We're in Indianapolis, and the shirt was made where, Matt?
It was made in Vietnam.
Yeah. To which we both did a double take, and it was just unbelievable. Matt, you started out in life not necessarily getting involved in game shows as far as what you wanted to do for a living. You really went to college, and you were a school teacher, which is where the progressive aspect of this went. Oh, by the way, I just also wanted to say behind Matthew is one of the most lovely young ladies in the world, his wife, Jody, who I don't know whether she's listening or not tonight, but behind every great man, there is a wonderful lady. And this gentleman happens to have one of the best, and her name is Jody. And so
she's amazing.
Yeah, she really is. To put up with you, she's got to be amazing, or she's got to be a drug addict. One of the above. I can't figure out which. And I know she's not a drug addict.
Well, I would have to say she's a saint to put up with me, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because to know Matt is to love him, and it's great times. But you were a school teacher, and through your teaching is where the game show stuff. Although you were always a fan of game shows, as a lot of us were growing up as children, but that's how the evolution for Game Show America began when you were a teacher.
Yeah, well, I'll actually back it up a little bit further. When I started college, and I'm not going to say when, but we didn't have the technology that we have today. We had some very old, orange screen monitors and whatnot. And I was, before I went to college, I was already designing my own video games with the Commodore computer system, and I had like an Apple II, and so I was doing stuff that way. But when I went to college, I went to UW Oshkosh. And I still go back to Oshkosh every year, and I do a number of speeches for graduating seniors and the communications and English departments. But what was interesting is I went for a computer science major, and I finished the entire semester's programs in about 3 days. They were very, very easy with the skill level I had, but there was no official computer science or video game major like they have now. And I finished all these programs, and I found ways to make them more efficient. And my advisor asks me, he says, okay, he says, you got all this done. He says, I just want to know what you want to do with this major. And I said, I want to design video games. And he looks me square in the eye and kind of gives me one of these fatherly things. He goes, you're wasting your time.
Oh, good.
And I went, okay. And he says, computers are for databasing, spreadsheeting, word processing, graphic design. He says, these video games are just a fad. He says, I don't know why you'd want to waste your time with that. Well, it's only $1 trillion a year industry or something like that. They make a lot of money. But now it is 21 years into Game Show America. I own a company that develops and designs games and game shows. And we've got a couple of amazing programmers on our staff that I have now hired. So instead of me being the coder and sitting down writing the code, I design the games with my team, and we come up with some pretty cool ideas, and they put it into computer code, and it generates income. It's a pretty win-win situation. So instead of going into computer science, I decided to go into teaching. I wanted to be an English and speech teacher. I kind of just dropped the whole math thing altogether. And I did teach for quite a while. I taught in Neenah, Menasha, Wisconsin. I taught in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I taught in Montello and Westfield. Did a lot of substitute teaching, but at that time, there weren't a whole lot of subs on the register, so I was busy all the time until I got hired at Oaklawn Academy, which was one of the greatest schools I think I've ever taught at. It's a school in Edgerton, Wisconsin, and I taught English and speech. I had 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, so it was middle school, not necessarily high school. But it was incredibly fun and challenging. But the problem I had was that the kids did not want to study for tests, let alone take the test. So I thought, well, how do I make this fun? So instead of doing a test review, because I'd say, okay, let's review for the test today. And they'd all go, like kids will do. And so I was up in the AV room one day, and I found this box that said Quizzer. Had about 1 inch of dust on it because nobody had used it in a long time. But what it was a simple lockout circuit, and it had 16 buttons. And I happened to have 16 desks in my classroom. So I wired, and it wasn't wireless. It didn't have a whole lot of wireless back then, but I wired up to each desk one of these buzzers. And then on the chalkboard, I drew like a Jeopardy type board, and I wrote all the kids' names down. And if they answered questions correctly, they got points. If they got them wrong, I didn't take away points. But if they were, like a C or D student, they could use the extra credit points to bump up their grade. If they were a B student, they could become an A student. If they were already an A student, I had a little store that they could trade in their points for candy and, toys and things like that. And so when I decided to do this, and the competition with these kids was fierce, it was so much fun. But we did a review. I said, we're going to try this today. And the kids went crazy over it. The following Monday, I came in, and the first question was, Mr. King, can we review for a test today? I knew I had won. I beat them. I beat the system. And so we decided to review a couple times a week. The retention of these kids absolutely went through the roof. They soared. I had the best test grades in the entire school, and everybody wondered how I did it. Well, they found out I was using this thing, so now it became a checkout and return system. Excuse me. So I took my hard-earned paycheck and I bought my own system that I could keep in my classroom. And I had a computer that I had brought in that was my own. The school didn't give us a whole lot of extra AV resources. They were a great school, but they didn't have a lot of budget for all those things, which I wish they would have. But anyway, I brought them in myself, and we started playing more than just Jeopardy in the classroom. The kids went crazy. The test scores kept going. But then I thought, well, what if I took this into like the adult world? Because I was also, doing a couple of like nightclub gigs on weekends and things, having some fun with people. But then I started booking this as an alternative to a disc jockey or karaoke or a game show, or like a casino night. And because those are the three big things. So in my first year, in 1996, from May 4th until December, I booked 34 events, which paid twice as much as my teaching salary. And I thought, I'm really onto something here. So when it was time to renew my contract at the school, I did not. And I went into Game Show America full time in May of 1996 is when it was born. We didn't actually hit the internet until about 1999 when that was starting to become, more popular. Right. And now our website is, everybody finds us by our website. But
it's a great website. Great website.
Thank you. In a couple of days, it'll be 21 years for Game Show America.
Yes.
So very pleased. And I had no idea that it was going to go to what it is. We're the official production company for the Game Show Network. We do a lot of events with them every year. We are developing our own games. We're pitching our own games for television. We've worked with pretty much every game show celebrity under the sun. We're really good friends with John O'Hurley. John and I, we've been working together for 8 years now, and we do quite a few shows a year together.
Yeah,
and,
but it wasn't for you. Wasn't for you, I would have never met Wink Martindale. I would have never met you, and I worked together with Alan Thicke a couple of times. That's for sure.
Yeah. Wink is an absolute gem.
Oh, he's great.
Very, very, very sad, to hear about Alan this last year. That was 2016. Just wasn't good to any. I mean, we lost Carrie Fisher. We lost a lot of, amazing musicians. And when I got the call for that Alan passed away, I couldn't even believe it.
Yeah, and I think I was the third. I might have been the third or fourth person that called you, because when I heard it, I was shocked. I just was. I mean, he's a young man. I mean, Yeah. I was producing his second honeymoon game show in Vegas when he got married. So I got to know him pre-marriage, and I got to know his wife Tanya. Met one of his kids once. I never got to meet Robin, but I met Carter once. Right.
And anyway, it was just a joy to work with him. And Alan opened so many doors for us. We actually got connected with Alan and his team early on in Game Show America's life, and he opened so many doors in Hollywood. So I'm incredibly and eternally grateful to him for helping us out, giving us good endorsements. So it was really cool.
He was always he was very kind to me. Do you remember what he said to me? Do you remember what he said to me?
He was kind to you because he didn't know you. No, I'm kidding. But anyway.
No, you remember how sick I was? Because you and I had just come off the road. We'd spent a month in Kansas City, and I used to fly in every week and then fly back. You guys would drive in.
Oh,
and you remember how?
right.
Remember?
Oh my God.
I remember how sick I was the last 2 weeks that we did the game show in Kansas City, which we had so much fun with. But I was so sick, and I had to do this show with you and Alan. But Alan comes to me after the show was over and the second honeymoon show was over with, because and I always forget the comedian's name.
George Wallace.
Yeah, George Wallace also knew I wasn't feeling well, and he just looked at me and he said, "You're not feeling well." I said, "No." So he got up on stage with me, and he was helping me get through this, because if you remember, I could hardly talk. I had literally lost my voice, and that was the year that they had Festino there as the judge, and I can't remember who else, but I was funny, but I was losing my voice little by little. Alan comes up to me after it's over with, and you're the only one that can do the Alan voice, but I'll do the best I can. Well, Gary, I really didn't hear you, but I'm assuming you were as funny as always. and he was just a great guy. And when I've had Wink on this show, Wink gave me one of the best testimonials ever. It's on my website. It's also on my one sheet now for my new show here locally in town. But you and I and the gang have had so much fun together over the years, just having fun. I mean, folks, you got to realize we're talking to Matthew King, president of Game Show America, and we met in the strangest way anyway in Vegas, and we became friends. And I worked for you for a number of years. And then you finally said to me, enough is enough. I can't put up with you. And so I strictly do talk shows now, but it's the greatest joy in the world. Games are so much fun. I mean, I remember going to Rochester, New York, and I remember Indianapolis, and I remember all the other little places that we worked right here in Orlando at the Gaylord Palms. And I just remember a lot of great things. And, that's the funny thing about game shows. When you were talking about teaching, anytime students get a diversion from their normal learning procedure, whether the teacher is funny or he incorporates, like you did, some game show type of stuff, I think students learn better than if they're just fed the minutia black and white all the time. I think if you change it up a little and give kids something really interesting to think about while they're learning, I think they learn faster and they learn more.
Yeah, well, they certainly retain a whole lot more, and the reason is it's attracting all the senses. First of all, it's tactile, so they can touch something. They're looking at something, so it's very visual. They're listening to something. We didn't have anything that had to do with taste, but we did things with scent, because what I did is I had a scent generator, and I could generate, it had like these little wax cartridges. Mm-hmm. And so my classroom traditionally smelled like chocolate chip cookies. When we did bridal fairs, because we do a wedding game show, we would put out the smell of roses, and everybody's walking around trying to find out where these roses are coming from. And they come to us and they're like, oh, and then I explain what we do, but their minds are open, and they're more receptive to the information we're giving them because of the scent. So with the chocolate chip cookie scent, and popcorn also worked well because they associate it with movies, they were just, their eyes and ears were open, and their mouths closed more because they wanted to know what was going on. Well, with this game, they really paid attention. They had to listen. So it worked. It worked incredibly well. And I thought if it worked with kids, would it work for adults? So we do the exact same thing. I am still a teacher. I have let my Wisconsin certification lapse many years ago, but I'm still a teacher at heart and on stage, because what we'll do for a corporate event is we'll take their content and we will turn it into a game show. We can turn it into something that they might have seen on TV, or we can do something completely original with it. The cool part about Game Show America is that we write our own software. We can, so if a client says, well, I kind of want to do this, well, maybe it doesn't fit into, like a Jeopardy type format or a Feud type format or whatever, we'll create our own format. We have no problem doing that. So if it doesn't exist, we'll make it exist. And I think that's what sets us apart, because many of the other companies that are out there, and there's not a lot of them, but there's enough to be some competition, but they're using a lot of off-the-shelf systems. They're not developing their own software. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but then they're kind of locked into a certain format. We have an open format system with our stuff. We've got one game called Face Off. I can do questions that could be multiple choice, short answer, long answer, true, false, yes, no, a list of things. It can be any type of question under the sun, and it can involve up to 50 people up on stage at the same time playing this game, in addition to the entire audience participating with a wireless keypad or their cell phone. We've written our own software to be able to play along with the cell phone.
And I know, because we've done many games together that you designed. If you want to find out more about Matt, go to gsapro.com. That's his website. You'll be amazed at the tons of games that he has produced. Some of them that he and I have talked about privately. He doesn't want to produce. God bless him. But some of the things that we've talked about should never be produced and should never be mentioned again. But I want to get back. I want to go back to when you were coming up with these concepts for while you were teaching. Let's talk about the skill set that one needs to do what you do now and compared to then, because again, you know, I'm not at all into the electronic stuff. I barely can get emails and send them. But for someone out there listening who's thinking, maybe I want to try some of this in my classroom or whatever, what kind of skill set did you bring to the table to begin with? Because I know you deal with electronic equipment, all the social media stuff proficiently. So as a matter of fact, you could probably build your own computers, which you've done kind of with Game Show America. What did you bring to the table that helped you prosper and know what you were doing along the way?
Well, obviously to have some type of background in teaching, to know what it is they need to learn, what my curriculum is, and the best way to go about doing that. So in an English class, I was like, all right, well, I don't have a whole lot of technology. I happen to find this lockout system, and I will put my name on the line and my company on the line with this comment. I can still do pretty much any game show with no technology whatsoever. And that's what also sets us apart, as other people really, really rely on technology. When we do an event, there is a backup plan in place that if we like a main computer, backup computer, but if for something, let's say the power goes out. I mean, as long as we had power, I can use the technology all day. But if the power goes out, can we still do our show? As long as people can see what's going on and hear me, the answer is yes. When I was in the classroom, I drew a Jeopardy board on the chalkboard. We did like a 4 category. It was 4 by 4. So it was, 16 questions, and then we do another one. So it wasn't exactly like what you see on TV, because the class was only a certain amount of time.
Right.
But I had to understand, okay, what is the best format for asking these questions? And again, with the teaching background, I've seen the difference between what we do and what, let's say, I'll say a competitor. I'm not pointing anybody out specifically, but we work very hard on question design and construction. A lot of times the questions are provided and the content is provided by the client. So what my job then is, if the client provides all the questions, I will learn the content. If I'm hosting it, I will learn the content so I sound incredibly proficient in it. Okay, so now back up to the classroom. I am, as the teacher of that subject, proficient in that subject. So I can talk about it very, very well, ask questions about it that the kids will be responsive to. So you have to understand learning styles, learning techniques. If you're just doing it for entertainment like they do on television, that's a whole different ballgame. But when you're doing it for content retention, because most of the corporate events that we do are educational, you have to know something about the content. You have to know something about terminology. You have to know acronyms. And if you don't, or you don't have time, or because that's a I'll say a value added service, because they can just hand us stuff, and if they host it themselves, that's fine. They know the content. If we have to learn it, that's more like consulting, because now we actually have to have a basic understanding of their stuff, because as a host, I'm the judge of yes, this is correct, or no, this is wrong. If they didn't build that in, then their people help decipher, okay, yes, that's correct, no, that's wrong, give them a strike, give them a correct answer, wrong answer, etc. But you have to have at least the basic mechanics of developing a good question. It can't just be, so if you were, if you were an animal, what animal would you be? No, we're going to ask targeted, pointed questions, because if it's beneficial to the client to have an open-ended question, the response will be content-based, and they will answer it, and there will be a panel of people saying yes or no. If it's short answer, multiple choice, I have the answers in front of me, and then they have to, they're obviously they've been in, sessions and sessions all day long, and now this is their big test, game show style. They're still going to remember it. But for me to be able to help craft the questions, which we can and do, you have to have some type of fundamental background in education to develop really good quality questions. Because I've seen people that think they're good question writers, and I get sent these things, and I'm like, this isn't so good. I mean, we need to work on these questions.
Yeah.
So we'll rewrite the questions, and that's just the English teacher and me coming back out. But I'm thankful that I've had that training, because if not, you can buy trivia questions, online or from different services. But I tend to, really, I want to customize the experience so every single show that we do is different. Even if it's the same client year after year, it's different questions, different content, it's a different show.
Right.
So having a basic understanding of learning their information, understanding and digesting their content, knowing as much about the client as you can to be able to craft the most unique and customizable experience that you can.
We're talking to Matthew King, the president of Game Show America. You're listening to The Express. I'm Gary Allen. I know because, again, I've worked with you numerous times, and you have clients that have been coming back to you for 15, 20 years. One in particular that you and I had really a lot of fun with. One question in particular was the Tire Mart down in Texas.
Yeah.
What I don't know if it was you or me or Scotty. No, it was me. That's right. Because I came with I was doing a Jay Leno thing at the time, which is what I got hired for. We did a whole Tonight Show scene, which was so much fun. And I had jaywalking questions, and we went around the lobby. And I remember the question because I felt so good about this question. And here are people who are, and set this up, would you, Matt, as to who the Tire Mart is?
Southern Tire Mart is one of the largest commercial tire distributors in the entire country. Mm-hmm. I remember when we first started working with them, we could fit into a small conference room, and it has evolved into, a massive production with multiple video screens and iMag and all this other stuff. But they are, in my estimation, and I've worked with other tire companies, the best tire company. I mean, any of our trucks that need tires, this is where we go. We'll schedule our tires to be rotated, replaced, and whatnot while we're working with Southern Tire Mart. But they do everything with tires. I mean, they've got salespeople that are selling $8 million worth of tires. I don't know if it's like a fleet account or something, if it's like UPS or whatever, but I know more about commercial tires than I ever thought in a million years I would ever know.
Now, with that said, though,
that
said, I came up with this interesting question because I'd always been curious. And when you heard the question, you said, yeah, that's pretty cool. Why are tires black?
Yeah.
And I remember we went around the lobby and nobody, and ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, Matt is right on the other end. Nobody knew the answer, not even some of the executives. But it was kind of interesting because you came to me the next day and you said, at their meeting all morning long, that was the main premise, was why don't you know why the color of tires is black? And of course, it's a combination of ingredients that they put in making a tire to make it black, to help it bond and everything else. It's a lengthy process, but it was a heck of a question. And I was so proud of that because I thought, ooh, I've done something that's really cool, but they are within
to their credit, though, the executives you were talking to were part of the proctology conference down the hall. That's okay.
Oh, well, this is great. We're here, proctology. We're talking tires here. Oh, that commercial that's on TV for, I'm tired. I collect tires, and now I'm going to be retired. I'm like, oh, please, stop with that thing. Matt, let's talk a little bit about the process that you go through. A client will come to you and they want a game show. Now, it could be Jeopardy. It could be Feud. It could be any of the ones that are out there.
I'll tell you right now, if it's either of those two games, I send them over to Sony and Fremantle. I'm just saying.
Really?
Yeah. If they ask for Family Feud or Jeopardy, because we don't do those games.
Okay. Well, if they do, but what? What do you do when a client comes to you? And I know you've come up with new concepts. I have in front of me names of games that you have produced over the last 20 some years. What do you do when you where do you get the ideas from when a client comes to you? What is it that you look for to come up with that game?
Well, a lot of times the client comes to us with an idea in mind. They're like, hey, we want to do a game show and we think that, something that resembles Jeopardy might be best. So I start asking them about their event. I ask them about their company. I ask them about their content. And I find out, maybe they have this vision that this is the best possible game for them. But I'll go, okay, well, based upon our conversation, I think we should go in this direction. I might agree with them, but I might direct them somewhat how else, depending on the goals of what their meeting is. So they say, well, we want to do some team building. Then I don't recommend doing one of those types of shows because we have other things that are more suited for people working together in teams.
Right.
If they want to do a lot of content, well, I'm going to recommend probably audience response, which allows everyone to play from either a wireless device that we provide or their own cell phone. We could do multiple question formats. So it's the same exact thing when you're teaching. You're kind of finding out about their learning styles and you're finding out what the content is. If it's highly technical content, there's a game format for that. If it's, I've got a question, but it's got a lot of parts to it, there's another type of game for that. If they want to ask just any type of question under the sun, we've got another game for that. So because there is no, contrary to what other people might say, there is no one size fits all or one size fits most. Yes, there are games that people always go back to that are popular, but I really want to find out what it is about them and make their experience unique. And typically, when we do that, we are building a custom package that typically commands a higher price tag. Sometimes they go, we want to do this. We have this budget. Can you do it? Yes or no? The answer is yes or no. We either do it or we don't. When a client comes to us, I want to be a solution provider to them because what we're doing is the game show is kind of incidental. What we're really doing is I'm building a relationship with these folks because I don't want it to be just one and done. I want to work with them for a long time. Right. And, sometimes they'll do a year on, year off. But the idea is to really kind of get inside their head and find out exactly what their needs are that they might not even know yet. They might think they know what they want, but they might really not know what they want. So by asking the questions, because the question I can't stand, and it's not their fault because this is just what people are conditioned to do. They call up, they go, yeah, how much are your game shows? Yeah. And I said, well, I can give you a price, but I have some questions first. I need to learn a few things about your event. Is that okay? And so I go, I'm kind of like, look, I'm not trying to skirt the issue of price, but I need to know a few things before I can give you an accurate price. Right. Because I don't know exactly, is it a 1-day conference, 3-day conference? Because if I say, oh, well, you want to do a trivia game with 5 contestant podiums, well, it's $10,000, whatever. I'm just making up a number. They go, oh, that's great. Well, it's over 18 days. Oh, yeah, shucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you learn as much as you can before you provide the information.
Right.
It's fairly simple. But then, if it's something that we don't have, or something that is something that's customizable, that's what I like the best. We used to do a whole lot of audiovisual production, and I passed all that business along to Baker Staging. John Baker has been with us for 8+ years now, and runs an amazing show. But I wanted to focus more on the design and creation part. So everything that we do AV production now is handled under Baker Staging. Anything that deals with games and interaction, software, graphics, etc., are now done under Game Show America. And it's allowed us to be more creative. So my favorite part is the creation of something new. A client just came to us. They're doing, and this is for a casino. They came to us and they said, okay, we've seen a lot of the stuff that you have. We want to do something slightly different or majorly different. Do you have anything that looks like this? I'm like, nope, I don't. And they're like, okay, what do you recommend? And so I said, you tell me what you want it to do. I will make it do exactly that, if not more. So I came up with a couple ideas, shared it with the client. They came up with a couple ideas, sent it back to me. We now have a plan, and our programmers have taken over, and they're starting to write the software for this casino promotion. And it'll be done, within 30 days. We'll send it off to the client to play and test out and practice with, and then it goes in their casino in Milwaukee in July. And it's an all-new game. We're going to be able to feature it for our other clients as well. But I like coming up with new ideas because when we do it, we always build an expansion, and meaning that we can change the rules. We can change how things work. There's a lot of if-thens in there. So if this condition happens, then this happens. But this client might not want that, so we can change the condition. Right. So now we've got a game that's completely flexible and customizable as far as name, branding, and rules. And so we've really we're actually entering our product into a contest. It's the only casino promotion that I know of that they can tell you exactly what they want, and we can literally drag and drop and create an all-new game, an all-new promotion with the exact odds they're asking for in a very, very short order. And so we've essentially built our own framework to have a universal casino promotion that can be anything they want it to be. And the cool part about the casino stuff, it is all games of chance. There's no skill involved at all, because in casinos, as you know, it has to be luck. That's what Lady Luck is. Oh, yeah. And Lady Luck is one of our favorite clients. We have Lady Luck and Alec Free Casinos that we do a lot of work with. So
yeah, we're talking to Matthew King from Game Show America. GSApro.com is his website. And I have worked with this gentleman for a number of years, and we always have a great deal of fun. Let's talk about some of the people that you have worked with. You worked with Alan Thicke, and we talked about Alan, and we certainly do miss him an awful lot. But you've also worked with our good friend Wink Martindale. You've also worked with John O'Hurley, Randy West, who is also a friend of this show. He's going to be on here in just a couple of weeks. Talk to the people out there, because you're a game show host. You and Scott are. I pretended to be for a while, and I really wasn't as good as everybody thought. I'm a better talk show host than I certainly was a game show host, although I held my own for about 5 minutes. What makes a good game show host? Now, I know the answer that Wink gave me, but that was referring more to television. And it was, of course, he always refers to Bill Cullen as the best that was, because he was a good listener. But when it comes to what you do, what have you picked out from, and you're a consummate professional, but what have you picked out from working with Wink and John and Randy and everybody that has made you a better host? And what makes a good host talk show? Yeah. What makes a good host to you when it comes to what you do?
There's a couple of really big things. And I want to say this carefully, because I know a lot of game show hosts or people that want to be game show hosts and whatnot. The number one rule, first of all, the contestants are the stars of the show. Any game show host that thinks he's the star is gravely mistaken. You could be the best game show host in the world by not actually saying a whole lot. Number two, you have to be a good listener. If you do not listen, then don't even be on stage, because you have to listen to what your contestants are saying. Because if they say the right thing, and there's two schools of thought with this, you can capitalize on it by saying something, or completely capitalize on it by just looking at something, like having a look. And I learned a lot about that from John O'Hurley. where somebody when he was hosting Family Feud, somebody'd say something and he'd just kind of do like a slow look to the camera, and that got the laugh. The contestant set it up. His look completed the joke. If a contestant, usually contestants open mouth and insert foot, and of course you can capitalize on it. Scotty's incredibly good at that, and
yes,
and throwing something back. He's really quick at that, and I have had so much fun with it. So you never know what you're going to get from these contestants. You kind of know where they're going to go, but you don't really, because they could say something that totally throws you off. The one thing I will say is that when a contestant makes me laugh on stage, it's not, if I have literally doubled over in laughter from something a contestant said. I keep going back to that Richard Dawson thing where the answer was September and he just completely lost it for the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
But I've had that happen to me because they just said something so out of left field that you didn't expect. And like I said, you kind of can expect them to go certain places, but let them get, you're hosting this thing all the time. All right. You are is essentially the ringleader, and keeping the chaos kind of organized. But the contestants, they're up there. Now you're at an event. They're up there. They're excited. They don't necessarily know who I am. I'm not, like a John O'Hurley or a Wink Martindale, but I'm up on stage. There's a host that's kind of running the show, and they talk, and they know their people, and their people know them, and they get the laugh. And I just kind of nod my head and move on. There are some times when somebody says something that's just begging for you to come back at it with a reply. And honestly, one of the best at that in the entire industry is Bob Eubanks. I have had the pleasure of working with him many times. And one of the greatest things about him hosting the Newlywed Game, he just let them talk. And he became the greatest game show host in the world. But he was able to get stuff out of them. That made him an awesome host. And then when they really said something, and a lot of times those contestants, I think, were clueless, and he capitalized on it. And it was hysterical because they didn't know they just got cut. So and kind of, like him, Gene Rayburn, even Bob Barker was so great at just making that contestant feel great. So I'm just, I merely ask the questions. That's really what I do, and I organize the chaos.
Yes.
But any quality game show host, you watch any of them, contestants, they just let them go.
Right.
Steve Harvey is a one of a kind because he's taken Family Feud to a place that has typically not gone, at least that openly before. But when the right thing comes out from a contestant, he will jump all over it and make it even funnier. But some of his best moments are when he doesn't say a word. The contestant says it, and they're laughing at him just kind of with his jaw open,
Yeah,
so,
and with his and I think that has to do too, Matthew. We're talking to Matthew King from Game Show America, the president of. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's a comedian first, and he brings that sense of wonderment because some of the expressions on his face are like, "You just said that? Really?"
Yeah.
Yeah. The greatest line I ever remember was Bob Eubanks. You said it was on the Newlywed Game. You remember the show that Eubanks could never get back? He just lost it, and that was the end of it. And the question was, what room in the house, what part of the house, or where do you have the most unusual sex? And the husband answered, I think it was the kitchen.
No,
and
actually, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And she comes out and and the whole joke is it was in the butt, Bob, but that's not what she said. If you go to YouTube and you watch the clip, they bleeped her out because she said something else, and Bob completely lost it. That was brilliant.
Yeah,
but it's funny because his book is called "It's in the Book, Bob."
Yeah. I believe that being a butt, Bob. And he just lost it completely. What have you noticed about game shows in general? We've got a couple of them that are on the air now, Match Game and the Pyramid. I like the Pyramid because I think Michael Strahan does a really good professional job. He's very friendly. He's good with the contestants. He's good with the celebrities. Match Game, they keep trying it and they keep trying it. I don't know. The audiences aren't that dumb. They used to be a lot smarter when Gene Rayburn ran the show. I don't understand why what the problem is. I just don't like Match Game. I don't like him as the host either.
Actually, I do. I think Match Game seems a little bit more canned. I mean, like you can tell it. Like a lot of times when people were watching Hollywood Squares years ago, Paul Lynde jokes were some of the best in the world.
Oh God, yes.
But they didn't seem rehearsed. They just seemed like very off the cuff. And I'm not sure if Match Game is going for that kitschy, it's intentionally tacky, ha ha ha, or if it's just they're just like, oh, these are groaners. But I still love Match Game because Match Game is not a game show. It's a comedy show disguised as a game show. But if you take a look, your question was, look at all these game shows out there. You've still got The Price is Right. You've still got Family Feud. You've still got Wheel of Fortune. You've still got Jeopardy. You've got Match Game now back. You've got Pyramid now back. These are classic shows that have endured the test of time. These are game shows people love. They've come to know what to expect. They're timeless. And you get new games like Deal or No Deal. Awesome show. Came and went. Millionaire. Amazing show. Came and went and kind of is in syndication. Now you've got, the Chase on GSN. Amazing game show. You've got Idiot Test. Brilliant game show. I know Ben Glebe. I've worked with him quite a few times. And that show is awesome.
But where do you think you think there'll be more and more game shows? Because be honest with you, people love to play games. If they didn't, and I know that what I'm about to say is not necessarily a game in the sense of what we're referring to, but if games weren't that popular, the casinos wouldn't be that popular because those are games.
Yeah, but not game shows. Now they are adding new elements to get to the slot machines to make them more entertaining. And again, these penny slots, you're not betting a penny. You're betting 50, 60 cents at a time, $1, $3, $5. So you're getting these little interlude skill levels are more like video games. But primarily people like being entertained. And the reason a game show on television works is because you enjoy the show, even though you're not winning, but you have somebody to root for. And The Price is Right is a classic example. And if anybody listening out there has never gone to see The Price is Right, and I don't necessarily mean The Price is Right live that tours around the country, that's paying good money to see a show that honestly, if you would go to LA, you could go on the show
for free,
see it for free. Now, granted, and Randy's worked on the touring version of it, and it's really a fun show. If that's your only chance to go see it, go see it. Absolutely. But if you ever happen to be out in LA, go actually see a taping of the show. The audience, it's the greatest show to go see tape because the audience is insane. They train you how to be a wild and crazy audience when you hear Come On Down. And Scotty actually got on the show a few years ago.
I didn't know that. Why do you need some?
Well, I think I did. It's the drugs, Gary.
Okay. Yeah.
He got up on contestants row, and then he got up on stage, and he won a hot tub. And you never. And I asked him. I said, "So what was it like?" He goes, "Dude," you wait all your life. He says, "You're watching that show as a kid, and you're sitting in the audience because everybody in the audience gets interviewed, and you don't. Your chances are 1 in 300, really, of getting called. And so they called his name. And actually, when you're in the audience, you can't hear it. You see it on a cue card. We happened to hear it because we were sitting right next to George Gray. And when Scotty saw his name, he said, I went blank. And the rest of us in our group jumped up and were screaming and shouting. He says, you wait all your life to hear that. He goes, I get up to contestants row. He goes, I didn't know anything. I totally blanked out. Here's the item up for bids. And he's looking back. That's why everybody looks back for help because you have no idea what's going on, Yeah. But it was so much fun. So if you ever have a chance to do that, but that's the excitement that we bring. And because sometimes what we do for corporate level is the closest anybody's ever going to get to a real game show. And our game shows that we do are as close to broadcast quality as you will ever see.
I would think they're better. I would think they're better, Matthew. I mean, just between you and I've done a number of them with you. The quality of your production, the quality of the people that you bring in are first rate. And I don't think there's any way you could say they definitely are broadcast quality.
Yeah, they're fun. Well, Ross Shaper was the first one. We worked with him quite a few years ago. I don't want to say how much because Ross is a good friend, and I don't want to date him. Meaning, anyway. But just never mind.
You don't want to put an age bracket on him, yes.
He said our game show sets were A+ and network caliber, and he recommended us to a number of his clients, and we did a lot of work. So, we strive to be the best. We're not the cheapest. We are absolutely not the cheapest company out there. I know there's companies out there you can get a game show for a few $100. You're not going to get much, no. But they have a niche, and that's fine. If it works for them, that's good. Everybody deserves to be out there working and earning money, but they're going to go into a little bar and make a few $100. That's funny. When you want, because somebody was telling me a long time ago, they said, well, if you want to go, invest in this game show crap and you want to go do corporate lunches all of your life, that's fine. I've made a living for 21 years doing corporate lunches because what I have done is separated myself from the novelty and become a performance. So when they call us, it's like you're calling, I want to call a celebrity to come to our show, or I want to call a high-end band. Like you're going to call the Scorpions to come and perform at your event. Mm-hmm. Our high-end events cost more than the Scorpions. No BS on that, because it includes all of the sound, lights, video, cameras, recording, warm-ups, models, stage crew, stage mm-hmm. manager, production crew. I mean, on a large production, we could have as many as 20 people running the show. Mm-hmm. That's what sets us apart. Now, can we do the small ones? Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have one that we're leaving for tomorrow in St. Louis. We have a show that we do. It's for a group called KidSmart, and they do a fundraiser every year for KidSmart. We're providing a game show, and the host is Joe Buck. Very, very happy to work with Joe Buck. It's our second year working with Joe Buck. Mm-hmm. And I also met Troy Aikman through John O'Hurley in Beverly Hills. So I got to meet both of the announcers when they announced the Packer games. As a diehard Packer fan, they always announce the Packer games. But
really,
anyway,
you're a Packer fan? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And if you tell anyone again that I support the Vikings or the Bears, we're going to have issues. Okay.
and all right. You brought it up. So we're doing an event in Wisconsin for Harley Davidson, and I'm the MC of the game show. We switched it around that I eventually became the contestant, but I did my opening monologue, and I'm doing everything, and I'm congratulating the production crew and everything. Now, folks, we're in Wisconsin. All these folks.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. These are diehard Harleys. Oh
the Harley God. People, which they took us on a great tour. We also did jaywalking there as well. But more than anything else, I'm thanking the crew. As you know, Matt, I always did at the end of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Show, I would say, hey, thank you for this one. Thank you for that one. Now, folks, they're all Green Bay Packer fans. They're all Packer fans. And I introduced Matthew King, the president and CEO of Game Show America, and quietly on the microphone I go over, he loves the Chicago Bears. The looks that came out of those people that went directly to you, you hid, you ducked, you got out of that room faster than John Wayne in the Alamo.
I'm just saying, boy, you lost one of your lives that day.
Yes. Yes.
I almost took. Yeah.
But that's the kind of fun that we've always had together, all of us, you and I and Scotty, because we have a great deal of fun together, and it's fun to do these things. And I think that's what happens with the audience and the corporations. They see the fun that we're having. We got about 5 minutes left here. We've already hit on the worst advice you ever got from your teacher. Why would you want to do that? What was the best? what was the best advice that you ever got?
I would. I've gotten some good advice, but I'm gonna follow John O'Hurley on this, because he's a friend, colleague, mentor, just all around great person to hang out with. We were in Vegas working. I was hosting a show at Planet Hollywood, and he was King Arthur and Spamalot. We're sitting at the Wynn after our respective shows. We would go out after our shows when there wasn't other plans. And
when I was I still in Vegas then, or no?
You had just moved. Just moved. 2008. You were out already.
Okay, yeah, I was gone. Yeah.
We're sitting there, and we're just talking about my business model and everything else. And he says, he says, before I go out on stage, every single show, he says, I say a little prayer, and that is, surprise me. And he says, when I go out on the stage, I want to be surprised. Not necessarily in a bad way, but, with a standing ovation or anything that happens, just surprise me, like catch me off guard, surprise me. He says, because when I smile, that smile is absolutely genuine, that you've surprised me. And so I have taken that and really kind of, I said, that's really relevant. And because, I don't like to do the same show twice. And that's why I didn't last a lot in Vegas. I've headlined a couple of shows out there. But after the second day and the third day and the fourth day and the fifth day and the sixth day and on day 30 and on day 60, it's the same exact thing, the same motion, and it becomes robotic. And that's not me. It has to be genuine.
Yep.
John, for every show, is 100% genuine. And I said, I have to be that way. So when I go out on stage, I stand backstage, and I'm like, I don't say surprise me, but I'm like, make me smile. I want to be surprised. I want to be, and it keeps me on my toes because I'm watching for it and it'll catch me off guard. Or if I'm not watching for it, it's even better because all of a sudden that's the surprise. And it really adds a lot of excitement to things. I enjoy being on stage and behind the scenes and having somebody make me laugh. That's the surprise. I thank John for that.
Well, I'll tell you, John is a great gentleman. I've been trying to get him on the show, as you know, and you've been trying to help me, but his schedule and this show don't always click. The new show here locally maybe will. And actors go on 8-9 performances a week, and they have to be the upbeat and everything. What is the best part of being Matthew King?
That's a cool question. And it's multifaceted because it's always changing. And I think, just when you think you know who you are and that you found who you are, you find out you're somebody else, but in a good way. We moved from Wisconsin to Las Vegas. In the process of doing that, we tried a partnership with another company. That didn't work very well. Two completely different personalities. And I needed to find out at that point where I really wanted to go and who I really was. We ended up going from Vegas, which I love to work in. I don't want to live there again. And I know you could probably agree with that.
Yeah.
We moved to Colorado. Colorado for me is zen. We live 8,500 feet up on a mountain. And I get to look out at Pikes Peak every single day that I'm home. The problem was, when we're on the road 254 days last year. I came home and sat in a backyard in a brick wall Vegas, I come home here and it's like living on vacation. And the cost of living is no more than it was living in Las Vegas or Wisconsin. It's actually cheaper than living in Vegas, a little bit more than Wisconsin. But I get to come home and relax and decompress and unwind and find out that I'm kind of a hippie. I'm very earthy. Yeah. I love going on hikes. I like taking walks, and I like disconnecting from technology, unplugging, so that when I go back to my job, I'm refreshed and energized. So I found the me in making time for me and my family, which has been ultimately important, because without them, I wouldn't be doing here. Jody and my family are my rock. And I take time to smell the roses and take time to enjoy it as much as possible, and have the ability to do that now. But I've worked really hard for 21 years to be able to do that.
Yes, you have.
In going down to some of the lowest points in my entire life over the past couple of years, I've reemerged bigger, stronger. I've invested in 2 more companies. So I actually own 3 companies now, and it's 2 other companies in addition to Game Show America. All three are doing exceptionally well, and I'm incredibly happy. And I wouldn't have done that without being able to find me first. So,
Well, I can tell you, and I can tell the people out there that there is nobody finer in my life as far as a good close friend than Matthew King. And I'm grateful every day, not only for your friendship, but I have other friends too. But I am very grateful to always be able to pick up the phone. You're always there. And if you're not, you call me back within a short period of time. Our friendship, our working relationship has meant a great deal to me for the last 10 years. I know my days of doing game shows are long over with because you don't need me, but I will tell you that I need you as a friend, and I am grateful to you, and I'm grateful to God that he put us together. We've been talking to Matthew King from Game Show America. Go on gsapro.com and check him out. He is one of the greatest gentlemen you'll ever work with, ever get to know. He's one of the kindest gentlemen in the world, and I am grateful every day for his friendship. And I thank you so much for taking the time to come on this program tonight, because I know you and your brother are back in Wisconsin taking care of some business. And maybe someday you'll need an usher, and I'll be there for you. But thank you so much. And thank you so much for everything. And I love you, and God bless to you, and tell Scotty and everybody that I wish them all the best, and tell Jody especially. Thank you for allowing you to come on this program tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Gary. It's been an honor to be here with you, and we've had a long history together, and I love you like a brother, man. I mean, this is great. We've had some good times, some bad times, but we have remained friends through and through, and I value that more than anything. So keep up the good work, man. You're a great host. You really are.
And thank you.
Let's continue to have fun in the future.
Before you go, and we're already over, but before you go, give me a little Alan.
Oh, you had to do it. Can I preface it with a short story?
Yeah.
Short story. Okay. So we were doing the second honeymoon game show, and in the lobby of Consolidated Resorts was a cardboard cutout of Alan. And I had wanted a meeting before Alan actually got there. So I went and hid behind the cardboard cutout, and the whole crew was sitting at the table there. They're waiting for me to come in because I'm going to call this meeting. And I sit behind this cutout. I'm like, well, it's about time you all got here. I've been waiting for about a half an hour, and I'm slightly pissed that you're late. I thought the jaws were going to, we had to scrape them off the floor, and then I come up, I'm just messing with you guys. And they're like, okay, don't do that again. That was really scary. But
it is.
But Alan, God bless you, man. I'm sure I'll see you again someday.
Yep, I do. And I know I'm going to see you before too long. God bless you. Thank you for taking the time tonight. I will talk to you soon. Have a great evening, sir.
You too, Gary. Thanks so much. Take care.
You're more than welcome. And I thank all of you for taking the time to join us here on The Express tonight. I will not go over where you can find me, but you'll be able to listen to the show Thursday night at 7 on diversitybroadcastnetwork.com. Progressive Voices. I'll have some other interesting news for you. And the website is just about done. We've got about another week to go. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us tonight. This is Gary Allen saying take care of yourselves and each other.
You've been listening to The Express with Gary Allen. Join us here every Tuesday night at 10 for more captivating talk with Gary Allen. See you next time on The Express.